seeing that there was a lot of spiritual materialism out there, going to ayahuasca experiences and then coming back to their startup in San Francisco and not hiring women and like all these things that, just leave out the whole takeaway, the major takeaway of having these experiences. So in my case, because I'm vegan, I'm super connected to nature, and then I thought, well, what's the best, easiest way of giving back? And to me, it was planting trees.
This is the Beware How Show. Mystic philosophy made practical. I'm Bob, speaking weekly with Scott and Ryan. We're three conscious creatives and formerly closeted mystics trying to unpack the inaccessible. According to the mystics, the truth cannot be spoken, but we'll try to talk about it anyway.
Hello, I'm Bob, and this is the Beware How Show, speaking with Scott and Ryan. Today is Sunday, July 12th. Today we have a guest who is Santiago Rodriguez Tarditi. Welcome, Santiago. We're excited to
Hello.
Thank you, everyone. Good job with the name. Not a lot of people get it right the first time, so
not a lot of white people.
Yeah,
I got it. I nailed it.
More often than not, but it's a tricky name. It's a long one.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have that problem, so I can't empathize with you. My name is Two Grunts by Neanderthals. I'm just going to read your bio and we'll jump right into it. Santiago, thanks for joining. Santiago was born in Colombia from an Italian-Brazilian mother. He is a creative director and photographer with a political science background and a record in the media industry. He's lived in Milan, Bogota, London, NYC, Miami, and LA, working for companies such as Publicaciones Ramana, Monocle, Fusion, Univision, and Feina. Proficient in copywriting and photography, Santiago has produced documentaries, published books, and developed brand identities, as well as cultural programming for different media outlets and institutions. Super interesting. You also have a podcast and an active Instagram, and what we're going to be talking about a lot today is you just published High on Design, which is a new book about cannabis culture and design in kind of emerging cannabis industry. So super cool. Thanks so much for joining the Beware How Show. We're all creatives, so it's kind of, we're all family here already. Just having, this kind of mindset. And, you also you're a meditation teacher. And so a lot of the topics that we cover, on the show and in the newsletter and just kind of the brand as a whole is about meditation, mysticism, and spirituality, all of which kind of overlaps with the work you do. So what up, Santiago? And I'm also going to request that we do a short meditation to start off.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you guys have put together. I think it's very timely and necessary. And I'm super honored to be here with you guys.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, let's do a quick meditation. If you can find a comfortable position where your back is straight and long, and just take a few breaths and scan your body. See where you are right now. Making sure that with each inhalation, you bring prana from the universe, that energy, that white light that purifies each and every single one of your cells. And exhaling, releasing, and letting go of any tension in your body, any worries in your mind. Letting your spirit rest and float freely without any attachments. Focus on your breath entering through your nose, that cold, fresh air nurturing your body. Activating your mind and heart. And elevating your spirit. Remember, you can always access this marvelous tool that the universe has given you. The ability to breathe, to grasp that cosmic energy that travels through space and time. With gratitude, we bring our hands together to gently touch against our chest, feeling our heart beating, reminding ourselves of the miracle of life. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in the world live happy and free, and may I contribute to that objective.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, guys. 2 minutes. 2 minutes in the cosmos. That's all you need.
We're gonna have to have you plug in for every guest for the first 2 minutes.
For sure, count me in.
That was really great. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for doing it.
Usually we're hearing a guided meditation from Bob's cell phone speakers through the Zoom call, so it's like this. It kind of worked.
That's
but
not
this
as
was,
good.
1,000 times better.
Like legit teacher in person, live.
Yeah.
Okay. Santiago, such an interesting background, and you just got so much cool stuff going on. Let's start at the beginning. I mean, we got an hour, hour 15, something like that. It's kind of how long these episodes are. So, I definitely want to get into meditation teaching and the book, but just tell us, where it all began. Born in Colombia, when, you jumped around a bunch.
Yeah. So I've had the luck and the privilege to travel the world since I was very young. My mom, Italian Brazilian, ended up in Colombia. She met my father. And then because of my dad's work situation, we lived in Switzerland, in Italy, then came back to Colombia, then I left again. And then I've started my career mostly overseas, like away from Colombia, although I did get to work in Colombia for a little bit as soon as I graduated from political sciences. And I just have too many interests. I'm a curious person, so it's hard for me to focus on just one thing. Sometimes I feel a little anxious because I just like too many things, and juggling so many passions is kind of difficult. But then again, I remember what it meant to be like a Renaissance man or have like an eclectic personality, and I like the saying "Jack of all trades, king of none." Just be able to play around with many different things and not limit yourself to just one or the other. And that has taken me across the world. I've worked in media, I've worked in NGOs, cultural institutions. I've done my own thing, consulting, creative consulting through my company, Atelier Deck. And my latest project is Project Rama, which is a movement or a platform of sorts where I share everything I've learned so far in terms of meditation, some yoga, spirituality, contemplation, and mixing it with a very real world component, which is raising money to plant trees in the Colombian rainforest. So that's basically where I am. My Instagram account, as you well noted, is another channel where I contribute a lot of what I know, but mostly what I learn. Again, tying into my curiosity, I'm always reading new things, investigating, researching. I have a lot of very cool friends. My family sends me like cool information. They know what I'm into. So they're like, oh, I think you're going to like this link on, why sleeping is the best way to travel through multiverses. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, that spin-off.
That cousin.
Exactly. So that then segs into a longer research on whatever, multiverses or sleep or whatever. So yeah, I've been around the world, feeling very grateful for connecting with amazing people. I've learned a lot, but now I'm in Miami Beach, just taking it easy.
Yeah, no kidding. Mm-hmm. We're all indoors for now, but yeah, beautiful background, and I mean, I think the first thing for me to kind of ask you or dive into a little bit more initially, which is, I think it sounds like kind of the middle is creative and spirituality, but almost like the front end of the journey is political science in university, and then now you're kind of applying spirituality and spiritual principles with that direct tree planting, not quite political, but it is a little bit, conservation is certainly a political issue. So that's so cool. That's very interesting. I want to ask you more about that. But first, tell us about, your political science background and kind of maybe influences, or what led you that way.
So it kind of happened as a mistake. And there was a joke in my faculty that said, I wanted to become a politician, but then I decided to work. So basically how this happened is I always wanted to be a journalist. My father used to be the founding director of a newspaper. So when I was little, I would really love to go and visit my father, because he was always super busy, but he would make time for us, and he would give us like a few things to play around, my brother and I, that is, or to draw or whatever. And then when we got bored of that, he would ask his secretary to take us around where the newspaper was being made. So I don't know, I was maybe like 12 years old or something, and I saw these huge printing presses just printing millions of newspapers, like for the whole country. People still sketching, and pictures were being cropped by hand and amplified, like all these amazing things. And just the sight, the smell, the sound, plus just seeing, stacks of newspapers and magazines every day in my house, made me want to become a writer, a journalist as well. Always interested in content, but Colombia doesn't have a solid journalism school. Most of the people who become journalists study what's called social communication, comunicación social, and it's a little too, I don't know, I would have to revise the offer today, but when I went to the faculty of that particular degree and saw the pensum, the course offering, like I wasn't too sure I wanted to take like theater classes or like, whatever, vocal expression class. Like I wanted to do the hardcore old school journalism, like Truman Capote kind of style. And
investigative.
Exactly. And mixing it with a literary aspect to it also, like very Gabriel Garcia Marquez back in the old days, because before he became a writer, he was a journalist. So
is that Motorcycle Diaries?
No, there's 100 Years of Solitude.
Oh,
yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. But so I couldn't find anything that would give me that structure, that foundation, that base in order to grow as a journalist. So I found political science to be the best course out there, just because it was structured in a similar way to how liberal arts is structured in the US. So it allowed me to take a lot of different courses and classes from all the different social degrees. So history, anthropology, philosophy. I had a bunch of elective courses. So if you look at my I don't know what you call that, but like my certificate of graduation where it says all my grades and all my classes, it's like, well, what the hell did you study? Because you aced it in history of music and history of art, but you could have done better in political history of Latin America or whatever. So I was never yeah, but I was never like too interested in politics per se, but rather the social cultural aspect of it. It did help me hone my writing skills, because every day I would have to write 10, 12, 14 page papers on whatever. So it gave me some solid basis for journalism, but yeah, I don't want to be a politician.
Take what you learn. Very cool. And then you went obviously further into that with all these different media companies.
Yeah, so
I'm familiar with a few of them.
yeah, my first job was in a publication called Soho, and Soho is an abbreviation of Solo Hombres, men only. And that it's basically my first job was in the Colombian version of Playboy magazine. So I started
Gentleman's mag.
Exactly, like a gentleman's mag, naked women in the front cover, like some, I don't know, soft porn in the main pages. But what was interesting is that it had some of the best writers in Latin America. Similarly to how Playboy started, they only invited like the best of the best. So you would end up reading some best-selling author talking about his experience taking mushrooms or whatever. It's like amazing, such a beautiful way of connecting two things, the writing skills of someone, but also that like edgy journalism. And that's what really interested me. And so I began officially my career in journalism with that magazine. From there, I moved to London because of my father's work again. And I came across Monocle, amazing publication, high-end, aspirational. And that was incredible. I was with them for almost 4 years. I started as an intern. I was supposed to have a 2-week-long internship. And then there was an opening at reception. I was like, fuck it, why not? Can I be a receptionist for you guys? And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I applied and I got the job as a receptionist. I did that for like 6 months, and then I moved my way up. And by the time I left the company, I was running the Americas Bureau from New York City. So it was a good learning experience for sure. And then when I was in New York, I got approached by Univision to do a soap opera. No, I'm joking, not a soap opera.
Novellas.
Telenovelas, yeah. No, to help them launch this new digital branch called Fusion, which no longer exists, but we created a lot of super cool things. It was a beautiful experiment. We did short documentaries. We a lot of people won Emmy awards. We did podcasts. We did concerts on the Mexico-U.S. border. We did all sorts of things. So it was a great experience. And then I kind of like paused my writing for a while. I went traveling for 6 months, and that kind of brought my photography skills back, and so I focused on that. Yeah, I don't know. That's like a brief story.
Were you starting to kind of feel the overwhelmed? Like if you went from reception to heading the bureau, the department, then you were navigating some politics in an a large organization, that can be exhausting. And it sounds like you were finding a creative breather or a reprieve from a global organization, global media organization.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was in my bucket list. It was something I wanted to do. I remember the first day I walked into Univision and I see this huge newsroom. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Just seeing people running around, like the live show is going on over there. And then someone is like looking for props and like carrying all these things because there's some talk show going on in the background. And it was super fun. I loved it, but it was definitely very demanding and a little bit excruciating to have to deal with so much bureaucracy. I had like so many ideas to offer to the channel, but most of the times they didn't get cleared by like whatever standards and practices. I'm like, what? I can't believe that. Like much respect and appreciation to the people who have to do these kind of jobs. But like when you as a creative see that your budget wasn't approved by a lawyer that might not have taken the time to really hear you out, because if you had the chance to express the purpose of a show that required $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever, then perhaps they would have gotten it. But this was more of a like, what, 100,000? Well, who is this person? Oh, he's on a like B scale salary or whatever plus this. Who is his superior? Like, no, it doesn't match. I'm sorry. Like the most you get is 25K. I'm like, cool, 25K is great for like a pilot, but I can't launch a whole series with this. Like if we really want to do good journalism, which was done in many cases. I just didn't get my personal budget approved for my I did get a few, and we did amazing docu-series, one of which won an Emmy, a Webby Award. I had other friends who won Emmy Awards for conservation shows, but the one I did won a Webby Award because it was a digital only series. So I got the chance to do a lot of projects, but yeah, it's hard for me to be in such a rigid structure, like like this pyramid structure. I feel it's like very Maslow back in the day, like that maybe it served its purpose at one point, but I love entropy. I love rhizomatic communication and interaction and just continuously growing, but without like a specific structure. Common objective, yes, we all need like a shared goal, but just be able to flow.
Yeah, it sounds like you're almost describing the transition of kind of the millennial eras, or like Age of Aquarius of like 20th century. Literally the printing press. I mean, I love that image from earlier of like the wheels and machines and the gears turning and things like that. And then like, but there's this kind of expressive quality to creativity that, like you say, it's you can't confine it, and it's super frustrating when it gets pushed up against the wall or the box of bureaucracy and gigantic organizations. I mean, I think I'm an independent filmmaker, and the reason for that is because I don't do well with that either. I mean, I don't really notes particularly from people that aren't creative. When I worked for a couple of production companies in Austin, and I'm very much a tyrant over my work. I'm not very open-eared to changes.
Yeah.
There was one short film where I sent it to collaborators and pals, and one of them I got like over 50 edit notes on a short film that was like 11 minutes, and I think I used like 8 of those notes. 8 of them were really useful and good, but the other 32 or 42 or whatever it was, there's a fine line, I think. And so congrats to you for making that realization that it's time to transcend. It's time to get past you know, kind of old timey blocks. And
it's particularly a media industry thing where it's like everything is becoming more decentralized and democratized. So it makes sense that, you know, we're all starting to follow individuals more so than we were institutions, maybe even 10 or 20 years ago. So it's it is kind of an era type progression that seems to be happening almost in media.
I was going to say too, Bob, with your work specifically, just because it's kind of communicating such an important message, you know, you're not really selling things, you're not selling products and things like that, I think you have the right to be a little bit more protective of your story and the message that you're trying to say. So I totally understand that.
Man. I'm a proud, pretentious artist.
That's how you have to be, man. You have to own your skills and your voice. You know, if you don't trust your own voice, then what's the point? No one will. Like you really have to either fake it until you make it or until you believe it.
So true. Yeah, it's I love that you have that background, because I think a lot of people in this space too, kind of from the other side, that maybe start making content, you know, this sounds maybe critical or egotistical coming up a little bit, but I think there is a lot of people in the spiritual space, mindful space, making content that don't have a background that you have, frankly, that are either younger or, you know, kind of just started making it. And, you know, respect to that scene of like super grassroots creators also. But I think the reason why your work is so interesting and worthwhile too is like you've gone through that process. You know how to make something from A to Z with really big budgets that, you know, frankly, you know, award-winning quality content. So it's very like arrows pointing at Santiago's work, everyone. You know, like this is quality stuff that is unique in this space.
Always learning. I was used to creating with big budgets, and now I've learned to create with no budget whatsoever. So that's also just as exciting. And as I was telling you, and perhaps if you saw my Instagram, I'm learning a lot from my girlfriend, who is a professional influencer. You know, for a while I thought like, oh wow, those influencers don't do much, and like she's nonstop. Like we had a conversation where we both sat down and was like, hey, let's promise each other we won't work over the weekends, please. Like we need to just take a break, because you know we're doing podcasts, we're doing videos, we're doing lives, we're doing posts, we're taking pictures, we're editing pictures, we're like creating these short videos, and it's amazing, it's thrilling, but you can't burn the candle on both ends. But that's to say that she's been teaching me a lot about, you know, just bootstrapped production and content making, and it's fun, it's good,
super useful. Wow.
Yeah, I think that as long as the message has substance, then you know you don't really need too much of a budget.
Totally. And also
I can see how
go ahead.
Sorry, bro. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the fact that you guys are contemplatives probably is why you had that realization. Whereas, you know, maybe most influencers aren't as self-aware as being able to say, hey, let's create blocks of time, you know, let's make sure that we don't destroy ourselves.
It's like, a meditation practice is the perfect pairing to that life.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And it's also, it's easy for us because it is our life, you know, it's our lifestyle. It's how we chose to live. So it's, for us, it's normal to wake up and do a super food smoothie and then take the leftovers and put them in our compost, and then, you know, dry some of the skin to make tea a few days later. But then we can also smoke some of the flowers that we've dried up. Like, you know, everything connects, and it's just a matter of sharing it, of putting it out there. I know that there's a lot of people who are interested in these topics but don't know how to begin. So Instagram and social media has been a great platform to share these stories.
It's awesome. Yeah, we might have lost Bob.
Mutiny. This is our chance. Take over.
The leader's gone. Here we go. My new podcast starting, guys. It's called Scott Time with Scott and Friends. Just kidding. We'll see if he bounces back here in a second.
What about you guys? Tell me a little bit about what you guys are up to. I see some guitars in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in my little studio, my music studio. And I mean, I'm a visual artist. I'm a motion designer, so I do.
Yeah, Ryan does amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Computer animation kind of traditionally, but I build interactive installations and interactive art pieces.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm working a lot with projectors and LEDs and kind of large scale immersive media.
Damn, that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd love to see your work.
Yeah, totally.
How do you feel about like creating those matrix or matrices, if there's a plural for that word, but like when you do interactive experiences, like do you feel you're creating a new matrix?
What do you mean by matrix?
Like a simulation, you know? Like,
sure.
I don't know if it's exactly what I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah.
But, you know, just the ability to project something onto a wall and create a world out of light and music and vibration. Like that's a matrix.
Totally. Yeah. So for me, let's see. I honestly try and strip away the technology as much as possible. I really, with most of my work, I prefer the technology to be kind of hidden and that it's not very forefront, because for a lot of my work, the goal for me is to induce a feeling of love. I mean, just kind of plain and simple, kind of put you in this feeling specifically of like being a kid, being playful, and kind of wonder. And so oftentimes with my work, I try and strip away the technology as much as possible so that it just puts you in a place where the technology isn't, it's not a distraction at all. It kind of sits in the background, and that the content itself can kind of, pull you in and tell you a story or whatever it might be. So yeah, I guess I think of like creating new worlds for sure. It's very dreamlike is like the goal with a lot of my work. But I don't know, for some reason I have a resistance to the word matrix, maybe because it reminds me of the movie or something, or some sort of.
So your pieces, your pieces feel like alternate realities to me. So if that helps.
Totally. I think I'd call them like a dream world or something like that, which totally is a matrix. Yeah,
true. Although that's a good movie, actually.
For sure.
It is a great movie.
I love it.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
The first one, I didn't see the other.
The first one is seminal part of visual effects history and film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, that movie, when it came out, I feel like it nudged a lot of people, maybe unconsciously, but it nudged a lot of people's minds into the idea of causality, a larger truth behind that, like that.
Totally.
It's just everyone references it now, ranging from spirituality to simulation theory, which is like a physics theory that the universe is a simulation. All this, it's just like that movie like cracked open some ideas for a lot of people. So
cracked the egg. Yeah.
Scott, are you also into dream world making?
I guess so. Yeah, in various forms. Yeah, I have mainly been a musician for most of my life. I have a
super talented musician.
Thank you. I've been playing in bands for most of my life, and I finally just recorded my first solo album that'll be coming out later this year. So yeah, Bob and Ryan have heard it. It's actually one of the opening track on this podcast is a little snippet of it, but so that music forever. I have a degree in writing that I got from University of Texas at Austin. So I was hanging out with Bob and his film buddies in the college, and learning to write during all that. So I've done a little bit of like screenplays, and lately last year learned how to code. So I'm diving into programming, which has been really fun. So I'm kind of like when you were talking about like that that anxiety of, I'm into too many things. I feel that all the time. I feel it like, oh, do I need to, like dive into one specifically? And I never can. Like I have to jump around. It just, like, my mind gets, I get bored if I don't jump around stuff a lot. So, but yeah, music is a big driver for me. So that's what kind of the thread that connects everything. Because if I'm programming, it's about like a music game or something like that. So music, I always come back to sound, I guess.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's important to explore many things, especially, at this age. And I don't know, well, never stop exploring, but I'm sure that the older we get, we will narrow down our search and then, probably end up just like growing tomatoes or something, because that's what really makes us happy, after like, oh totally, I won all these awards and I did all these things, whatever. Like I did it, like I checked that list. It's fine. I made good use of my time on this planet, but deep down what I like to do is origami or whatever. Just like focus on that.
I've always said I'm gonna just at some point go to the mountains and just have a little farm, and that will be, if I can have the mountains and a nice lake and a little farm, I think I'll be happy.
And I think I'll be coming.
Absolutely.
Joining you for sure, man.
Yes.
That sounds.
I'll be getting the land plot next to you.
Perfect.
As well. So.
Perfect.
I think that's what we all want these days, especially after so much quarantining and lockdown and whatnot. Like I've always appreciated nature, but now I truly understand its vibration, and just the beach was closed for like 2 months here in Miami Beach. And when they reopened, just, picking up that fresh air and of course there's like this cosmic aspect to it, but it's also like a very biological, natural, the fact that the air from nature is carried with micronutrients, microorganisms, and its own biome that nurtures our body. Every time we're breathing in these fungal spores or whatever it is, it's just, we're building immunity, we're releasing dopamine and serotonin and like all these things that make us happy and make us feel better. So yeah, definitely the pandemic has, at least in my case, it has intensified that urge to be in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's like one of those things you don't realize how much you love it or how important it is to you until it's taken away,
Yeah, I think is becoming aware of it. I'm like, I feel so fortunate because for years I pay the bills with the day job by hiking dogs in forest preserves north of Chicago, where I live. And so I get that daily immersion. There's these beautiful parks and forest preserves north around the city of Chicago, and I like, as soon as I have a different job, I don't know if I'll be anymore, because like I've got to that, like I grew up in Austin, so I grew up doing a lot of hiking and camping, and it's just part of me. Like I start to get anxious if it's not a daily, part of my daily life. I start to get bad things happen if I'm not immersed in nature at least every other day. Like I've become pretty spoiled with my job, I guess. So yeah, but yeah, I think everyone's feeling it now. It's like I felt lucky then, and now I feel especially lucky to have that job, and it makes me want to try to build, I don't know, businesses or systems or things for people to let them get immersed in nature more often. And like my wife and I are often talking about buying land so that we can do a kind of outdoor camping Airbnb type situation where people can, there's just going to have to be more solutions for traveling in the future, because people aren't going to want to stay in big box hotels where there's, confined spaces, and like 80% of land in America is private land. So there need to be systems where people that own land can open it up to the public and like let people experience, the natural beauty of the world. So my mind has been spinning ever since this started with like how to create
a new world essentially where people can dive back into nature more easily.
Yeah, I think we must begin to think about a situation where
Hey.
we, hey Bob, you're back.
Hey, Bob.
We're all
I'm
recording
trying to
your
figure out
own
how to
selves,
switch you
right?
to.
Yeah, we've been recording the whole time. We've just been hanging out. It's no worries.
I know, but thank God for meditation practice, because
I literally was just like, this is ridiculous. Okay.
I thought that was
All right, I
I
made
thought
you
that was
host.
your Irish exit. Peace out. See you later, guys.
Yeah, just bye.
Good luck, Ryan and Scott.
I have a question for Santiago that I wanted to ask if we want to start there.
Please.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, your background's been super interesting. You've been able to do a lot of really cool stuff and been able to see a lot. And I'm curious where your spiritual practice started, and kind of who that started with. I mean, was it with your parents kind of in your childhood? Is it something that you picked up later, through your travels? And not only that, but kind of how does it, I'm also curious about what your spiritual practice looks like on a, in this current state, and kind of what your maybe daily practice looks like as well.
Yeah, that's an amazing question, actually, because it has been part of my life from a very young age, but it has evolved and it has changed. I grew up, well, besides the time I spent living in Europe, most of my childhood and teenage years happened in Colombia. And I come from like a very traditional religious Catholic family on my father's side. But in general, the country has that Judeo-Christian mentality. And I went to a Benedictine school. So I was educated with ora et labora as my main motto: pray and work. And it was an amazing experience at school. It was very academically strict, but we also focused a lot on sports as a means of expression, of growing, of collaboration, and we were the best school in terms of sporting events. We won every medal, every cup, or most of them. Like sometimes we let other schools win, but it was a forming experience, because it does, sports teach you a lot about spirituality in a way. And the priests who were there put a lot of energy into making sure that people practice sports, and that this was special. But they also asked us to go to church, at least I think it was like once a week. So there was like church class. We had a whole slot for going to church. And I think it showed me a lot of interesting aspects about how a religion works. I have to say that probably Catholicism is the religion I feel less connected to, but I do appreciate it from a philosophical perspective. I think it taught me a lot. And the good thing is that growing up, my father, because he was also an academic and an intellectual, and my mother, like very design, like joie de vivre, a lot of quality of life experiences. Like we always had super cool things at home that could be in the way of like a Bhagavad Gita, but also like a Ganesh statue. And like my mom would go to acupuncture. But then, on Sunday, we would, if we wanted, we could go like across from our apartment. There was this beautiful church, so we could go to church as well. But nothing was very strict. And so I had all these different experiences and information out there from like a very young age. And I started incorporating all of that. It was fine if I spoke to my parents about reincarnation, because we would have like these beautiful debates. Even if I was very young, like they would be totally open about it. You know, whereas I hear stories from other families where like we don't talk about that. You know, like this was always welcome. So there was really no
That's awesome.
restriction. You know, I remember, you know, reggae and hip hop were an important part of my teenage years, and then I got into cannabis, and then my parents like let me grow a cannabis plant at home. So it was like that sort of
Wow.
openness, and
Your
yeah,
childhood beats a lot of people's.
no, I'm
You're
very
only aware of that.
I'm very lucky because my father would, you know, talk to me about like the drug war and legalization and so on, and my mom would make sure that the plant was in a beautiful pot and like was watered properly and so on. So
Got sunlight.
It was very nice to have this.
What's interesting to me about, I mean, a lot of things are interesting to me about Latin culture, Latin American culture, South America, but particularly from like a historical point of view, when the kind of, you know, Christian missionaries came over, a lot of, from my understanding, a lot of the traditional folk religion didn't quite go away. And maybe you can enlighten us a bit further. I mean, it did in some areas probably, but you know, or in Mexico, it's called like curandero, curandera, like kind of folk religion based in kind of the more indigenous culture, remnant kind of pre-Christian missionaries. Is that in Colombia? Is that, do you have any, you know, connection to that, or feel free to
there's
on that.
Colombia has a history of shamanism. But that's mainly in the Amazon, and closer to the capital, to Bogota, you find more of witchcraft. So there's a lot of witchcraft, especially in a region called Los Llanos, which is close to Venezuela, and like the surrounding areas, like that central part of the country. If you had to cut, Colombia is basically like a diamond, right? So you have like the Caribbean coast here, the Amazon here, and then like the Andes mountain range crossing across. So like the center part of the country has very traditional like witchcraft, mysticism, and there are a lot of people who will cast spells or will wash away any curses. But that wasn't really too popular. I remember like there was this woman who would read your cigarette. So when I was younger, I would smoke cigarettes, and you would go and like she would read the ash and how it burned, and like she would tell you some things. So there was a lot of fortune telling as well. People like doing palm reading, tarot, and then further up in the Caribbean coast, you find more of like Caribbean tradition, you know, some voodoo, some santeria, but yeah, I feel like the Judeo-Christian, and especially because the government has always been like very, you know, linked to that particular religion, it's, you know, it's present everywhere, and even the Amazon, like you get there and you see churches everywhere, and you know, people are like going to these religion celebrations connected to Christianism. But yeah, the concept of the shaman and tied to ayahuasca and to natural healing has always been there, and from a very young age I connected to that, and I always wanted to go and do an ayahuasca ceremony with some big taita. They call them the taitas, the fathers. These spiritual guides who will take you to other realms.
Very interesting. Happy to continue on down that rabbit hole. You know, you also wrote a book about the cannabis culture, obviously, that we talked about in your intro. But yeah, before we get to the book, maybe do you want to touch on more of the kind of you know, Mother Aya. So I have a friend of mine who is really close to my wife, actually, my wife's cousin, who, you know, 10, 15 years ago was like calling my wife's family. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but she was like, hey, Melissa's smoking weed, like 15 years ago. And like now she just came over, a year ago or so. And just came over. That's how old I am. I'm like, yeah, she just came over like last summer. Because we're older and time is shorter. Anyway, she was like, yeah, Mother Aya and that, and like she got married in the Peruvian mountains with her husband. She's like all about psychedelics and shamanistic mystic philosophy, and we talked a lot obviously about all that. And she was like, yeah, Mother Aya's making herself known and stuff was like a sentence she used. And I feel like that's indicative of a larger societal shift towards realizing that stuff does actually have value. Maybe when you were a kid, that was like, it was just kind of the weird, esoteric lady reading cigarettes, but now we're realizing that there's a lot of value in, particularly, I think what psychedelics does is that, the psychedelic experience breaks down barriers, right? It destroys, the kind of ego sense of separateness. And thankfully we have, kind of modern psychology, Jungian, understanding to help us realize like subconscious and these concepts that, it helps us explore. And so, having your background, having a Latin American background that's closer to, the usage of those plants, certainly more so than America and the European, European culture. What's your take on kind of the renaissance, if you will, of psychedelia?
Yeah, I think that because it was associated with indigenous communities, it was, put behind the curtain for a long time.
The other, right?
Yeah, demonized.
Exactly, demonized. It was like, because you literally do see demons, when you're drinking ayahuasca and when you're going through these entheogenic experiences, like you can see a lot of dirt in your head, in your heart, in your spirit. So there's definitely that aspect of it, and I'm sure that aspect didn't commune well with this idea of salvation and God as like this perfect heaven and hell and this thing, and it's like you can only go for heaven in Catholicism, like hell,
kind of reductive, patriarchal,
exactly
flowing beard guy.
So the whole plant resurgence, I think, connected to a wellness wave that has been incrementing over the past, I'd like to say 10 years, perhaps. In my case, natural remedies were always around. Colombia has an amazing biodiversity, so you get all sorts of vegetables, fruits, herbs, roots, etc. So there was always something I remember when I was young, I had mumps, and the cure was to tie a necklace of baby lemon limes and leave it for like 2 days. And my mumps went away. No antibiotics, no shots, no anything. And this was who cured me this way was my grandmother, who is the most devout Judeo-Christian person you will meet. Like she has altars all over her house. Like she prays with her rosary beads, like very committed. But she was the first person to say, oh, that's mumps. Just put this necklace around your head, your neck, and in 2 to 5 days, you'll be cured. And it worked. And I'm sure there's some biological, chemical answer to that. So there were always like these little, bits and pieces of natural remedies out there. But for a while, I think it was seen as, oh, you're a hippie, or you're crazy, or you're a left-wing Marxist, or whatever, if you're going into the jungle and taking ayahuasca. Now it's like getting a tattoo, like if you don't have a tattoo, are you even a millennial? Like, I don't know. Like, if you haven't done ayahuasca, like, are you living in the 2000s?
So true.
So on one hand, I think it's great that people are discovering these natural medicines and these sacred plants, but we cannot forget that they're sacred. They have to be respected. And when I hear about friends being like, oh, I just got invited to like this ayahuasca experience in a penthouse in Soho in New York, and like this shaman, he's amazing, he's French. I'm like, wow, okay, like
it's only $12,000 and
also that like I respect that. Like, I don't think a shaman has to be born in the jungle in order to have guiding and curative knowledge. But at the same time, shamans went through a lot to get to where they are in their communities. It wasn't so much like, oh, someone woke up one morning and say, okay, who wants to be a shaman? Like, there, you come over here. It's like, these people would have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and learn, and they would get lost in the jungle for years and learn about what each plant did and how to cure things and experiment. And I'm sure a lot of people died in that process, so that now somebody who goes to Burning Man, has this revelation in the middle of some super cool camp, and then comes back saying, okay, I'm moving to Tulum, and now I'm going to do ayahuasca ceremonies left and right. Again, like, full respect to the people who do it. And I'm sure there's really amazing healers out there that go beyond nationality or trade or background or whatever, but you're just starting to see too many of them. And I think we cannot forget that these plants are sacred.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because it's
spot on.
I struggle with the critiquing of that scene a little bit as well. Like it doesn't feel very like loving kindness, like all beings, sentient beings have value. Like whenever I start to like make those same kinds of judgments, like I feel like the opposite of that. So, and I'm sure you do too. And you prefaced your saying by saying respect to them. Like I'm right there with you. Like there's a value. I think it's also on levels too. Like you have like really like masters, but then you have these guys kind of and gals in the middle rungs, if you will, that are still working out more of their darkness, so to speak, or their shadow work. That they're still on the path. They had to go through making a social media, a shaman presence first to get past the ego aspect of it. Like they're on their path too at some point, but they're not the end all be all. And I think it's super useful to call out and appreciate you also saying that it's not nationality based. We actually in a previous podcast episode we were talking about, like, for example, the idea of like kind of charlatan detection, or like what are kind of some bullet points possibly, and like the main one I think isn't nationality based, it's vesselhood based. Like the more you see someone that says like, oh, this isn't me, I'm just I'm a work in progress, I'm working on my own stuff, but what I do is I get into this space where the healing material comes through me or the information comes through me, that's okay, I'm interested, I'm all ears in that person. But if that person is saying like, I'm the source of this, and that gets power hungry and egoistic, like that's a red flag.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I open my tarot readings. I say,
oh, beautiful.
I say, look, this isn't me. I don't know you. You don't know me. Like, it's great that we connected, but I'm just a bridge. I'm just a channel between what the universe has for you and the cards. I lay them out and I interpret them. And something that's been happening is I forget all my readings. So I've had people, call me, 2 days later, hey, remember that card and like what you said about this? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I literally don't remember. I try hard. So either I'm super plugged into the universe, or I have to stop smoking weed because I'm losing my memory. But no, it's more of but I think it's more of a, and I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday because we forgot something, and I remember, I think it was because I spent some time in Bali doing a yoga teacher training and meditation training. And I think somebody said that when you start losing your memory, you are truly becoming enlightened. You know, when you don't forget, when you forget everything about your past and forget about the future, you're just like, you know, fully present, and that's when you're enlightened.
That just reminds me of something that I've been kind of experiencing too, and that I feel a lot of truth in that. I've been working with this lady, Jennifer Miller, and in moments I have found in moments working with her, and we kind of do these kind of like group therapy sessions is kind of what it feels like. But it's a space, a circle where it's the chance for you to open up and talk about anything at all, and just to have a space where a group of people will kind of hold you with love and care, and allow you to be really, really, really vulnerable. And especially in moments where I've found where people need to express some sort of anger, which is really healthy, that, you know, that we don't bottle our anger, and if we need to express it, that it is able to come out. But almost every single time when I feel that people are like really tapped into like their power and tapped into their spirit, their spirit, and they won't remember anything that's coming out of them. Like you kind of tap into this, like, I don't know what to call it, but it's like this primal energy, you know. It's like this very connected space, and when that happens, oftentimes like a lot of stuff comes up and comes out, and then afterwards they don't remember a lot of it. It's happened to me multiple times. And so there's a lot of truth in that, I think, is, you know, maybe the more that you're kind of tuned into a moment of spirituality, and a moment of being connected to source, especially moving through some, like, you know, deeper, heavy stuff, that oftentimes it is not, it's a very, you probably won't remember it because yeah, you're kind of really tuned into that moment and very present, you know. And so I hear a lot of truth in that. I've experienced that before too.
Ram Dass talks a lot about the rational and intuitive, right? It's kind of an interplay between, you know, in the West, we just think the rational mind, that we worship at the altar of the rational mind, and the rational mind's important and it's useful, but it should, what's the Ramakrishna quote? It's like, it's a useful servant and a terrible master. I know Scott's reading Vivekananda, so you're in all that material. But yeah, you know, rational mind and intuitive mind. And the intuitive mind is, I think, what you guys are referring to, is like, there's no, you know, logic connecting, you know, past event plot points and future anxieties and things like that. It's just the presence, and it's useful, but it's also, I think the trick is the interplay between the two. And, you know, I think it's time societally that we focus more on the intuitive right now. You know, the rational mind has gotten a few centuries of, you know, getting puffed up, but it's a balance, I think, in these ape suits, at least.
Yeah, there has to be an interplay between both, I think, but you should be able to activate one and the other simultaneously, but also, you know, separately, and at some point also shut both down, you know, and because, I mean, rationality and intuition both, I think, connect through experience. You know, the capacity of experiencing something will give you the rationale to understand that it has a correlation with something similar or something that stems out of that particular topic. And the intuition also tells you, well, you know, this is what I've learned from that experience, so this is what might happen. And then when you really tap into that and release and let go, and it happens, then they're both kind of connected, you know?
Beautiful. Yeah, I think
Totally.
meditation also helps. Like if anyone is starting to get lost in our conversation right now, like what meditation practice does, it helps you notice the lens at which you're, kind of traversing through.
Exactly. Yeah, meditation is really important because it disconnects us from the outside world and the outside noise, and it reconnect us with our essence in a non-judgmental way. I think every day we're judging every single thing we do, and that just puts too much pressure on ourselves, because we're judging what other people are doing, we're judging what we're doing, we're judging what we should have done, we're judging what we will do. Like it's like the just closing your eyes and honoring, respecting your breath, just being able to breathe. It's like, dude, seriously,
Yes.
like are you going to complain about all these things and what could have gone wrong and what did go wrong and blah blah blah? Like just enjoy your breath for 20 minutes. Like we breathe, I was reading, we breathe between 30 to 50,000 breaths every day. 32, that's a lot of breaths, that's a lot of inhalations and exhalations, but we're very seldom honoring that. Exactly.
None of it.
exactly
Yeah.
So,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Tell us about our book, about your book, Santiago. High on Design.
High on Design.
Is it your first book, by the way? I think, is that?
No, I've published a few other books.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'll edit all that shit.
They're mostly coffee table books, and they were done in collaboration with Gestalten, which is this amazing German publisher based out of Berlin. I spent 6 months of last year working with them full time. And my first book with Gestalten was a partnership with Monocle when I was still working at Monocle as their as one of their magazine editors. And the first book is called The Monocle Guide to Better Living. So how to make certain shifts in your life, buy other things. Like I've distanced myself from a lot of concepts that the magazine represent, but back then it involved a lot of purchasing and like very aspirational, and like how you can grow your wealth, whether it was a material wealth or also like a quality of life wealth.
Interesting. And then you've slowed down on emphasizing consumerist materialism over the years.
Yeah, I think,
you don't seem to be a big materialist to me, Santiago. Maybe I'm misreading you.
I'm happy that it comes across that way, because I'm trying to put or give more value to people, the planet, and experiences rather than just material things. Not just because we're polluting the planet with them, but also because I don't know, they're not essential. There are a few things, and here I am talking to a computer and whatever, recording on my phone, and these are work tools, and you have to appreciate every creation for what it is and the amount of energy and work that was put into them. But when we start focusing too much on our property instead than our feelings or our heart or our mind, then I think we're getting a bit lost. But
they make me so happy. So why do I have to stop?
Yeah. So yeah, Monocle. Monocle. No, some things do make you happy. Like a good mattress makes you happy because it provides a good night's sleep. It's much better than sleeping on the floor until you get used to sleeping on the floor. But I think it's the ability to go between one and the other that really makes us more adaptable to the world and to experiencing different situations. Like, hey, look, if I have to sleep on the floor for the next 12 days or for the next 12 years, yeah, I'll eventually get used to it and find a way of making it more comfortable than not. But hey, I'm also going to enjoy an amazing memory foam mattress because I know as a fact that it does help my lower back pain. So why would I say no to that? It's just not becoming
You just
obsessed.
provided my wife with a ton of justification in this episode. So thanks a lot for...
You're going to have to go and...
She'll point at this.
get a new memory foam mattress. But let's go back to my book. So that was the first
obsession
book
and
that was
attachment.
done.
Yeah.
Exactly. So don't get obsessed with material stuff, is what I would say. But yeah, I try to live like a very monastic life, and that includes just like, I don't know, wearing like the minimum, like very basic things. Like everything you see around me, I know this looks like a Pinterest stage. It's a beautiful home. But it's because my girlfriend is an influencer, and she puts a lot of effort and attention to everything that appears in her pictures, including our home. But this was all here. I appreciate it. I love it. I respect it very much. But for the past few years, I've been living out of a backpack and a suitcase, and I'm not exaggerating. Like, I got to Miami Beach with a backpack, with my computer, some t-shirts, jeans. So I try to live like very frugal life. But this is to say that first book was very focused on improving your quality of life. And then the second book I did with Gestalten was about perfumes and aromas and fragrances. And this third book, which it was my original idea. I pitched it to Gestalten. Like, they didn't get it in the beginning, and then like I showed them all these amazing, super cool brands that are elevating the cannabis aesthetics through design, and then they got it because they're a very design focused publishing house. So in the beginning, they were like, yo, this dude is just gonna, what are we gonna see here? Like pictures of Bob Marley and Snoop Dogg. I'm like,
a Juicy J rapper.
I'm like there will be like part of that. Yes, there will be papers. A little bit of that sprinkled throughout the book, to be able to connect, the whole history behind cannabis and whatnot. But what I really want to focus on is normalizing smoking weed, consuming weed, everything, the dispensaries, the industry, the accessories, the experience, and then they got it. They liked the idea. We worked on this book for like 6 months full on. We assembled a good team of people. We came up with a cool structure, amazing photography. And then, the outcome, I'm super happy with it. It touches upon, the cultural aspect of cannabis, social, religious, political, but everything, the core theme of the book is high design, elevated aesthetics, and how today you can buy a $350 bong that is handmade beautifully by some artisan or some creative, and keep it, right in the center of your living room as a decorative piece, because it's beautiful and it's appealing. But you can also use it, and it serves a purpose. It's just showing the world like, hey, look, there's nothing to be scared of. This is a plant. We've been using it for thousands of years. It's only been 100 years since 70 years, whatever, since a handful of politicians decided to prohibit it, mostly based on racial or anti-racial intentions,
Yep.
Marijuana.
So
they just made up a word. And the Randolph, also speaking of, that's interesting too, the printing press is in your background too, because I believe it was William Randolph Hearst that was one of the main lobbyists that owned a lot of timber and lumber yards, and so he wanted to use paper, and other competitors wanted to use hemp, and he said, no, I'll just use my political prowess to get this stuff made illegal.
Exactly.
And, now we have the new Jim Crow that's imprisoned Black people and people of color for smoking cannabis, which is actually, you wrote the book on this, so you know a lot more about it than we do, but from my understanding, white people, Black people, Latin Americans, we all smoke cannabis about the same rates per capita, and the justice system does not reflect that. So,
there's some mass incarceration. There's mass incarceration that affects mostly Black and Latino communities for for smoking, consuming, or selling weed. And then you see, people making millions of dollars. They're now loaded because they have a dispensary shop that looks like an Apple store, and people walk in and out of there, before they go to whatever their private homes in Beverly Hills and eat a super cool gummy. And then you see these people who are in jail for a spliff because they had a spliff in their pockets when they were arrested, when they
jaywalking
were
or something,
no, this doesn't make any sense. So through design, what I wanted to do is normalize the conversation around cannabis, but then create a bigger conversation about the war on drugs. It's ridiculous that we have alcohol and cigarettes and big pharma and pills and whatnot out there, just everyone consuming so freely. And when it comes to the more natural plants, drugs, whatever,
safer,
then
also
safer,
herbs, even
herbs.
Yeah.
Like why is valerian root? Why is it okay to take a valerian root tincture before you go to bed that will knock you out for 8 to 12 hours, but then rolling a joint and taking a few puffs before bed is seen as something that could put you in jail? Why? When nature cannot be illegal. It's nature. It's just such an anthropocentric view
it's purely
life.
Cultural. Yeah, totally. And I didn't mean to cut you out there, but it's something that is like created out of 19th century, 20th century American kind of like white government, white corruption. And I think hopefully give us some optimism here in that scene, and that I think the fact that these states are making it legal, we're making progress, although the main office of the American government I'm not too optimistic about, but the as a whole it seems like we are getting there in terms of progressivism, in terms of I think it's also the youth, right? I mean, I lean more democratic socialist really than anything else politically, as far as the political affiliation in America. And man, I mean, the youth vote for Sanders, for example, it was 18 to 45 was overwhelming compared to Biden voters that were he won the 46 to 65 up, but the voting blocks indicate the timeline of the future. And Sanders was trying to legalize cannabis. I mean, that's a part of the kind of quote unquote far left, which I don't really like that term because it's dismissive. But
my state, Illinois, I was pretty proud of them this year because 2020 we passed it earlier, but it enacted this year of full medical and recreational use. And probably more importantly is they're expunging records of marijuana offenders, and they're giving licenses to people in like struggling communities of color that have been hit the hardest by the drug war. They're getting a priority for like distribution licenses. So, and that was like and that wasn't
That's huge.
That wasn't a referendum. It was the Illinois legislators actually wrote that. So like, it was one of the best kind of steps forward in that. So yeah, I'm lucky to live in that state. So yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Starting to
hear.
change.
Yeah, I think more politicians are starting to realize how much money we've wasted in just fighting drugs. I mean, growing up in Colombia, I suffered the war. Nothing compared to what the people in the actual conflict zones were experiencing. But still, like I had to drive around in a bulletproof vehicle because we were threatened and because people were going to kidnap us. And, all that money that was invested in what's called the Plan Colombia, which was a US funded project to kill all the guerrillas, all the paramilitaries, all the narcos, has spent literally trillions of dollars and has achieved very, very little. Imagine if we had taken those trillions of dollars and built schools, hospitals, roads, infrastructure, like all these things that are really necessary. You see it in
Plant trees.
Plant trees. You see it in places like Colorado. I don't know. Every year they raise something ridiculous, like $30 million from
Right.
like weed taxes, and now they're building schools left and right. They're
Yeah.
you know, propping up new hospitals here and there. Like that's incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah, respect to Colorado for really leading the front on what that should look like from an economic point of view. Because I mean, a lot of people that I'm in Austin, Texas, and which Austin is I don't know how much you know about Austin, Santiago, but it's basically they call it the blueberry and the tomato soup. We're this blue oasis in a very red state, and my theory about Texas is that the Texas legislators love money more than the Bible. So I'm optimistic that they'll get, it's just going to be unavoidable because, like, what you're saying, the income and the taxes from the cannabis industry that people want to use responsibly, again, like you said, this is something that, I mean, or maybe we didn't talk about it, but to my understanding, it's killed 0 people. And
cannabis, 0.
How many hundreds of people have died from alcohol, like, since we started this podcast?
And cigarettes.
Or cigarettes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think like 10,000 people die from alcohol-related diseases every year in the U.S. or something like that. It's like in the millions worldwide, but it's still fine, if we see billboards everywhere, and if, you walk into your parents' home with a 6-pack in your hand. But if you pack a bowl, in someone's living room, then it's like, wow, what is this guy doing?
Yeah. May we be the generation that destroys the taboo.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And maybe more just hearing your story about what that experiencing that side of it in Colombia. That's maybe the thing that angers me the most is that my American government has like exported these like really harsh practices to other parts of the world, and all the other people that have had to suffer because of like my country's and my government's like
military industrial complex.
It's
right.
like it's just such a terrible cyclical machine that is running right now that has to stop.
The money game.
Sometime.
I mean, war is the best investment in the world. People make billions out of selling machine guns and ammunition and bombs and whatnot. Like that's all they see. They see it as this huge production industry that is highly profitable. Like, why would you invest in a hospital, like, if it's going to cure people? That's why people make money with big pharma, because they first get people sick and then they hook you on these things. And it's the same with the war industry.
So how do we get Halliburton bored to take ayahuasca? That's really my question. If we have one hard-hitting question today, it is, can we get the suits to come down to Colombia?
I think let's get them to meditate first. I think
that's better, probably even.
Meditation is less scary. It's less invasive, and I think we have to start with, Gandhi said it, be the change you want to see in the world. So, like, each of us has to start adopting habits that will make us better people. I love my girlfriend's story when I ask her, like, how did you start with your blog and your social media presence? And she said, well, look, I used to be in private banking, and the day I got a raise, I decided to quit because I hated it. And then I got home and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And she Googled how to become a better human. And that was it. It started with, and it implied many different things, like from stop putting like toxic makeup on your face, and, switch to a plant-based diet, and make sure you exercise at least, 20 to 30 minutes every day, and meditate. And so it's all these things that we can do that can change ourselves and then inspire other people. So if I had to sit with a board of directors, I would say, look, change your diet from this to that. Make sure you carve out 20 minutes before your daily morning meetings, and then do the same at the end of the day. And during lunchtime, I know you guys go out for lunchtime and like drink whiskey. Perhaps instead of drinking whiskey during your meeting, like just stretch a little bit. And all these small changes that then create a whole bigger puzzle of well-being. So I think
on Saturdays, go to the food bank and serve the hungry people in your community and get gratitude from them and understand their point of view, etc. That's a beautiful way to put it. And you really you tone shifted from our our cynical stoner talk about the military industrial complex, which is legit, by the way, and I feel like that totally. But
no, but I'm
really
sure
excellent,
that the thing is deep down, I think the universe is benevolent. Like, of course there is like this counter aspect to it that keeps it moving around, but I'm assuming that 99% of the people in the world just want to be loved and give love and not harm people. And the guys who are shooting guns in the middle of the jungle, like, they're not, again, most of them, I don't think they're there because they like doing that. They were forced because of their social pressures, because of abuse in their households, because they didn't have the appropriate support, because it's the only way they can pay for their college. So we have to also keep that in mind. This is
everyone's just reacting to their own situation.
Everyone is struggling, and what we can do is offer people tools that we know improve their well-being. And that's, it's cut down on alcohol, exercise, meditate, express gratitude, connect with nature, and many, many others, including ayahuasca. At some point, I think we should all experience some sort of entheogenetic experience. We should, whether it is mushrooms or whether it is ayahuasca or iboga or datura or whatever it is. Like, there's so many amazing things that nature put out there for us, and we have these systems, endocannabinoid system, and dopamine release, whatever, like all these things. Like, we are built to have that sort of interaction with these plants. That's where you think about the stoned ape theory.
Yeah, I was going to mention Terence McKenna. It's kind of funny that we haven't talked about him yet, but
what is the stoned ape theory?
50,000 years ago, that essentially that was when we went from tribal hunter-gatherers to being a bit more communal incrementally over time. And his theory and a couple others, I mean, it's one of many scholars put this forth, but the idea that what Terence McKenna says is there's a connection between cattle, mushrooms, and the goddess. And it's like, well, what are you talking about? It's like, well, as soon as we started herding cattle 50,000-ish years ago, the guys walking behind the cattle, that's where the mushroom grows in the cow patty. And when you take the mushroom, you see the goddess. And so there's all this artwork of goddess and cow type, themes in world cultures in those prehistoric times. And, it's the idea that it was a evolution of consciousness and a, kind of step forward in humanity. And I mean, I think what I really wanted to just kind of end on too, Santiago, is Project Rama. I mean, I think, we're talking about nature and the value of self-actualization and, kind of individual improvement and how that translates to societal improvement. Well, you're certainly doing that with Project Rama. Tell us more and how we can follow you and get involved.
Part of the journey I've been on for the past few years has shown me that even though the quest for spiritual enlightenment is very important and drives the mission, we do live in a world that requires a lot. And the best way to grow in that real world, in that matrix, even though I know that isn't our favorite word
That's
here.
another episode. That we'll get to that in the future. But yeah.
But you know, it's a way of also contributing to building that planet, that Maya that we're in. So I seeing that there was a lot of spiritual materialism out there. So many people like doing yoga, but then going out into the real world and being pieces of shit, or like, you know, going to ayahuasca experiences and then coming back to their startup in San Francisco and not hiring women, and like all these things that, you know, just leave out the whole takeaway, the major takeaway of having these experiences. So in my case, because, you know, I'm vegan, I'm super connected to nature, and then I thought, well, what's the best, easiest way of giving back? And to me, it was planting trees. I spent the past 6 months in Colombia for different reasons, but I thought to myself, well, look, I never thought about moving back to Colombia, but how can I utilize my time here in the best way possible? And it was planting trees. And so I decided to start raising money, collecting money from people who believed in in my project, and supported the fact that I wanted to plant trees. And then a friend of mine who is building a natural reserve in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Santa Marta, in the northern coast of Colombia. She said, look, I have this land which I want to convert into a natural reserve. And I want to plant trees because this used to be full of coca plants for cocaine production. And these areas were controlled by the guerrillas and the paramilitaries and the narcos. But she's been slowly buying that land because, well, I don't know how familiar you are with Colombian history, but a few years ago we signed a peace treaty, which is far from being perfect, but did calm the whole conflict on a major level. So a lot of people decided to take this opportunity to reintegrate into society, and they have left their land or are looking to give it different use and so on. And my friend started buying these plots of land, and she needed some support with planting trees. So most of the trees have been planted.
Love it.
I personally planted 100 trees across Colombia, like close to Bogota, just like, you know, because I invited a lot of people. Like this is
So
this
cool.
is an endeavor that where, you know, the more people you have, the better. But Colombians like to party a lot, and most of my planting happened very early in the mornings over the weekends. So a lot of people that signed up were then like too hungover to go out or whatever. So I thought, look, it's easier if people just like send me the money. I go, I buy the trees, I plant the trees. But now with my friend, she has her own nursery up in the mountains. They're all endemic species. They grow really well in that particular ecosystem. So what I do is I send her the money directly. I'm doing this through a GoFundMe page. I know there's probably like a better way of doing it, but it's the easiest way right now.
That's great.
And there's more information on my website,
We'll link to all
projectramarama.com, or my Instagram account at Rodriguez Tarditi. But this is something that I've also done on a daily basis by saving the seeds of whatever I eat, both fruit and vegetable. I just save them, I clean them, I germinate them in my kitchen, and then, you know, a week later I go and plant them either in my front yard. We have a tiny patch of soil that we can plant, but sometimes I just keep them in my pocket. You know, like Johnny Appleseed, like going around
I was
the
gonna
world.
say you're Colombian Johnny Appleseed.
So yeah, I would invite you all to save your seeds and just plant them. The world needs more plants.
Beautiful. Well, may her, especially your work with Project Rama and your friends' work, and, you know, kind of incrementally buying land from, you know, drug production, cocaine production, and cartels, and everything associated with that she's done over time to convert that into a positive and in a biosphere and something that contributes harmoniously to the planet. May that be a metaphor. I love that image. May that be an image for the future civilization.
Hopefully, yeah.
But yeah, we're happy to link to all your stuff, and we're getting started. This is episode 11, so there's going to be like 700 more. So please come back and talk more. Maybe we'll jump in. We'll get you updates on what Project Ram Ram is doing, and if you're in Miami, or you might be somewhere else in the future, it sounds like. But man, thank you so much for coming. It was a wealth of information, and we're so glad to have you. We'll link to all your stuff.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you
to you guys for having me, and for raising the good vibrations.
Likewise. Beautiful. Thanks, Santiago.
Thank you, Santiago. It was really great to meet you.
Thank you.